But if you read newspapers and if you look at television, you will find that all Muslims eat beef and all Hindus are killing Muslims because they want to protect cows. That is the narrative. Now choice is yours. You want to believe in that narrative or the narrative I have told you just now about the cows. Absolutely wrong narrative. Because the media is controlled by people outside India, not from people inside India. Almost 70 to 80% stakes in Indian media are in Gulf, in Middle East. It's the Middle East money which controls most of it. Then there is Chinese money. And there, of course, there is Western money. Tell me, why would they want to stop the third fastest growing economy in the world? Give me one reason why would they like to stop emerging new Hindu Rashtra. Not by Hindu Rashtra I mean a regressive Rashtra, I mean a progressive Hindu Rashtra, which basically brings Indian values again. Why would anybody like to stop them? So there are lots of people fighting India from outside and inside, and in these times it is very critical that people like you and me, whatever we are doing, spend a couple of hours in a week. I know here time is very precious, but you invest that time and you bring about the correctness of the narrative. Correct it. It won't be corrected. Who will do it if you won't do it? And if you don't do it now, I think it's going to be very difficult times where people will stop believing in their own religion, their own culture, their own society. And the biggest danger is going to be that the woman we are talking about as Shakti will again become Sati. And again we will have a certain kind of mafia which will take over our films and television, and I think that day has to be stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the enlightening talk, Vivek ji. We thoroughly enjoyed the flashback of so many movies in these few minutes, but we also understood the important message you were trying to convey so beautifully. I would now like to request Vamsee ji to moderate the interactive session with the speakers and the audience. A humble request to the audience, please frame your questions properly and concisely. Also kindly refrain from making lengthy comments due to limited time. Vamsee ji.
Hello. Yeah, of course you can. All right, I'll try to be steady. Thank you, Vivek ji, for a brilliant talk. I mean it sincerely. If my campus was in session, I would have ambushed you and taken you there right away to speak to my students. But I hope the next time you visit the Bay Area, we'll have the honor of hosting you at USF as well. I just want to quickly reflect on 2 or 3 things you said, and it's obviously very useful to all of us. And I think the Vichar Manthan forum, as you saw with the textbook example earlier today, is deeply invested, I think emotionally, spiritually, in self-representation. And when I was doing my PhD in UMass, which was like the JNU of America, we used to talk about self-representation and diversity and all these things. But what it crumbled into in campuses was totally corrupt, what you've been facing. And I think it's in the real world, it's in the community that I've seen these spaces of what the Marxists used to call struggle. And this is where it's all happening, and people trying to be themselves. The challenge though, and I'll make this a question for you to think, reflect on. I think there is 2 different models or visions of diversity that are going around in the world today. One is the one we grew up with, the Sharmaji, Masterji model of diversity and inclusion, where your cows are treated like family members, they're protected and nurtured by Muslim families. That's the way we understand it. And then there is the Google, McDonald's, JNU, university, big media, CNN kind of diversity. And I know at one level you go to Google and Facebook, you go to Silicon Valley, you see all the Indian faces and the Indian food. But you probably heard about the issue that took place at Google recently, where an engineer, an American guy, wrote a memo on women, and that was sort of rudely interpreted. He was fired. And now guess who's being blamed for it? Sundar Pichai, the Indian guy. Yesterday, the New York Times writes an editorial saying, Sundar Pichai was too excessive. Now what if he had protected this man's free speech? Imagine how much worse he would have been treated by the New York Times. Yeah. So either way, the Indian guy gets it. So anyway, so there is this Google model of diversity. There is the Sharmaji model of diversity. I think we are all on one side over here. But one thought that came to me, and particularly in the light of your very informative narration about the history of Indian cinema, the political economy, as we used to call it in grad school, is the same. The freedom of the press belongs to the guy who owns it. And right now you have the Arabs and the Chinese and the West invested in producing this narrative. And on our side, it's a narrative that's coming from the heart, it's coming from the people, the small town students in the universities. It's a people's narrative. But I don't know how long it's going to last on Twitter, on Facebook, when people keep getting censored and bumped off. I don't know how long it's going to last if generation after generation, our children have to go to Sacramento and fight not just the bureaucracy, but these big and corrupt textbook mafias, which ignored a lot of successes the children got last year and still printed the same garbage, literally, right? So I was wondering if you had any thoughts for all of us on how we could continue the good fight in the absence of organized funding, in the absence of any vision from the Indian business elite, which still seems to think that the Hindu movement or the small town Indian revival that we're all part of is infra dig. How do we do it without the funds?
Okay, I'll make it very short and answer would be very simple. Now, if you want Indian themes, somebody will have to fund it. It has to come from passionate people who really want to do something like that. We have, India had Buddha, India had Krishna, India had Ram, India had Guru Nanak. We have created 4 religions, Sikhism and Jainism and Buddhism. We had partition. We have a Kashmir problem. We have so many social ills. We have so many subjects and stories and ideas which are Indian. And we have one of the richest mythology. But we have never made one film on these subjects. On Jesus Christ, though I really admire that part of mythology, on Jesus Christ I was reading there more than 500 or 600 feature films or TV films or documentaries, something like that. We have nothing on Krishna. We have nothing on Buddha. We have nothing on Guru Nanak. Forget that, we have nothing on Gandhi. We have nothing on Jawaharlal Nehru. We have nothing on Emergency Until Madhur's film recently. Why? Because nobody finances those films. Now I'm making a film on Lal Bahadur Shastri's mysterious death in Tashkent. I'm making a very bold film, very risky film. We are struggling. It's difficult. Somebody has to fund it. Now instead of I'm saying you fund Shah Rukh Khan films, you fund Salman Khan films by paying money at the box office. $10 multiplied by million people makes it $10 million. But when my film comes, not 1 million people can, 1,000 people go to screen, cinema hall and see it. Raise your hands. Can anybody going to do that? Not reluctant hands. They should just go like this. Okay, now I tell you, Shah Rukh Khan is standing there. Raise hands who wants to meet him. All the hands will go like that. Nothing wrong with it. Fine. I also get fascinated by big things. I went to see Google, not some small startup which is far better than Google. I understand that. But it's very important that you guys start putting in money into good films, which are Indian films. Promote them, support them. Because without that, change will never come, nobody is going to fund it. This modern competitive capitalist world, they understand numbers. We'll have to fight them with numbers. That's the practical option. Utopian option can be anything, but if you fight them with numbers, you have to bring in numbers.
Thank you. I think the only strength on which the textbook movement here has survived, from the children is the numbers. Ultimately,
I'm very impressed with that.
and so I'll just ask one more question, and then I'll give the floor to you. I know you're very eager to ask many questions after this talk, and I would like to ask Pallavi ji if you have any thoughts on this whole, as you put it very poetically and aptly, the Sati versus Shakti model for women's roles. And I should just add that my mother used to be in the movie. She was an actress in the 50s and 60s in the South, and she used to do all these mythological movies. But her name is Yamuna. And so later, 70s, 80s, even in the Telugu film industry, there were no Shakti roles anymore. It was all the girl who gets harassed and then slapped by the hero and she falls in love. So, I mean, I don't have to tell you how dismal things have gotten, but you held your own, in art, cinema, and television, and now in historical dramas. So I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I finally got the mic to speak. And not that I speak too much, I speak very little. I think that's the secret of our marriage also. I'm one of those very few women, I think, who likes to listen to her husband speaking. Well, to answer your question, for me, it's always been Shakti because I'm the third generation of actors in our family. It all started with my grandmother, the Marathi Mandal people here have probably heard her name. She was known by, her name was Vimal Gaisas, and she's worked with people like Vichar and Prabhat cinema, and she's done she played a very important role in a film called Shamchi Ai, where she played that Dushta Kaku. And of course, she's done a lot of theatre. So the reason why I am even here today is all because of her, because she started at a time when it wasn't considered appropriate for women from good families to come in films. So when my grandmother actually started to work in cinema, we were the family was thrown out of the social circle, and we were social outcasts. And it all started changing when my brother, who started acting in films as a child actor and went on to become a very famous child star by the name of Master Alankar, and has done a lot of, over 100 films. It all started changing then. And then we started, people started coming home and they would send bouquets of flowers and they would send chocolates, and everybody wanted to touch Master Alankar and see if he was for real. So suddenly, from a time when nobody wanted to do anything with the family, to the point where everyone wanted to be associated with us only because, Alankar was famous, that this entire journey I have not really seen by my eyes, but I've heard about it from my parents. So when I decided to act, of course the same thing happened, there are a lot of people who had lost contact with my parents. Suddenly, all that started happening. So what I'm trying to say is that when you're successful, people always want to be associated with you, and they'll always try and tell the world, no matter what you are, that you're a successful person, you're a powerful person. Okay, I could have been the meekest girl, but to know me was probably a very proud moment for the people there. So now when we talk about Shakti, I've always seen women as Shakti. The Indian woman for me, the women in my family, my mother, my grandmother, Hamesha Shakti ka swarup rahe. And I started feeling this more so when I started traveling. You go to the European countries and you see the paintings there. Thanks for reducing the volume. You see the paintings there, and नहीं बहुत नीचे ही रखिए because बहुत river बहुत आ रहा है. There is so much of debauchery in the paintings. That is all the culture. Even now, I guess that's what this entire fight for liberation, feminism is all about. Because the way women have been predicted in the Western culture, this has never happened in India. Yes, sati was an extremely bad system which had to be stopped, but there was a reason for sati. Because India was invaded by, foreign rulers, and the kind of things that the poor woman had to go through after she was left alone was it's even beyond words. So it was considered better for the woman to die instead of keep living a life of hell. I'm not for sati, obviously I'm against it, but there was a reason to do it. It wasn't just done because men wanted to kill these poor women, Why did dowry start in India? Because when the invaders came in, they would pick up the girls at random, they would take them with them and play around with her modesty. What started happening was that the father, who was too old to look after his daughter, actually started talking to younger men to come and protect their daughters. They said, please, aap iski shaadi aapse ho jayegi, you'll be able to protect my daughter better. Now these young men started saying, hey, तुम्हारी जिम्मेदारी मैं अपने गले में क्यों लूँ? मेरा क्या फायदा है? So then the father said, अच्छा ठीक है, इतना ये मेरी तो गैया ले लो, ये मेरी थोड़ी ज़मीन ले लो. That's how the dowry system started in India. It doesn't have to exist now, but that is a practice for God knows how many years which has been following. So Indian woman has always been Shakti, and for me this Sati or Shakti argument doesn't exist, because even when जब औरतें सती जा रही थी तब भी वो शक्ति के रूप से ही सती जा रही थी. Have I answered the question?
It was my honor to listen to that answer. Very beautifully said. And a little absurdity I want to share. Little absurdity I wanted to share. There was a documentary made a couple of years ago on the very important issue of female feticide, and the filmmaker tried to be objective and neutral, but there was an activist there who actually came and who started blaming Hindu men of, during the time of the invasions, for not allowing Hindu women to go and marry the invaders. And that argument unfortunately came up again recently with the whole Alauddin Khilji movie. I refuse to refer to it as a Padmini movie, but that's what it was. It's not about whether Padmini was real or not real, but it was about glorifying a real historical tyrant. But anyway, so I am grateful that in these tragic times when the cultural industries are ruined, there are voices like yours, and thank you.
See, coming to Shakti, I am just saying it because I love to say this again and again, I am repeating here. I think the next revolution in India or in the world, wherever, if it has to come through Indian women. I firmly believe this. Because if somebody can volunteer, and what I'm going to say in next 1 minute, if somebody can make a presentation, I'll be really grateful and obliged, because I can't do it. Look at an Indian woman in a family. She's a investment banker, she's a inventory manager, she's a crisis manager, she's a F&B manager, she's a hospitality manager, she's a room service manager, she's a tent manager. Look at, and she goes, walks, she gets vegetables from the market, she comes, cooks, and most of the women today are also working. All of you are well-traveled people. I have also traveled a lot of this world. In which other society you will, and then she's being eve-teased, and gradually she finds a way out to deal with that. She learns to deal with so many things, and still, you go to her house at 3 in the morning, she will immediately feed you. I don't know how she will do it, but within 15-20 minutes she will feed you. Imagine where in the world, in this entire humanity, anybody can do this except for Indian women. Just think.
Our sentiments truly expressed. Let's take a few questions from the audience, and if you can, make it quick and sharp. We have about 15 minutes left, 10 or 15 minutes. There. I don't think you have a mic, so maybe.
I wrote it down.
You can speak loud, no problem.
You can come here and use this microphone.
Yeah, if anyone else has a question, please move up forward so then you can take the mic
Okay.
up.
So, the question is that, we live in a distracted world, right? With 140 character attention span. Whereas Indian society, as you mentioned, is inherently complex. How do you think that we can simplify that layer for everybody else to understand?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question in case you didn't hear it very quickly. We live in a 140 character simplified medium world like Twitter, but Indian society is complex. How do we handle this?
You are right, absolutely, but Indian society is not complex. Indian society is not complex. The problem is the world, rest of the world is so superficial. We look at things superficially, so superficially that when you actually, I'll tell you the film which I'm making now, I discovered one thing and I'll share it with you. Truth. Everybody says that our purpose is to find the truth. But the truth has a very strange quality. When it stands in front of you, it looks like a lie. Because our eyes and our mind is not trained to look at the truth. And your eyes can see only what your mind knows. That's why when you go to India, because rest of the world, who writes about the world? Indians don't write about the world. Rest of the world writes about India. So they make it portrayed as like a complex, chaotic society. It's so simple. There's a mother, there's a family, there's a society, we live with each other, we grow wheat and we eat it and we sleep. What is Zen? Zen came from Hinduism. Zen, the philosophy of Zen is, what is Zen? Zen is that leaves fall. That is Zen. River flows. That is Zen. So is Hinduism. Zen word has come from Hinduism. Buddha's Dhyan, when it traveled to China, because in China you don't have Dha, it became Chan. And from China it traveled to Japan. Japan does not have Cha, so it became Zen. But actually the word is Dhyan. So India is not a complex society. Instead of tolerating India, you accept India is the world's most simple society. And it's like when you have a deep, meaningful relationship with people, you may find it complex. If you look at them superficially, they are very simple, nice people. Hey, how are you doing, man? So it's wonderful, I'm doing fine. When you go deep into it, Indian society takes you deep inside the continents of your soul. That's why it sounds complex. It is a very simple society.
Just adding a little more to what Vivek said. All complexities that we talk about, they have been written in books and they've been shown in movies. Books cannot take more than 500 pages and a film cannot take more than 3 hours. And then there were shorter films made, are being still made, on issues which are very hard-hitting and they can tell you the story within like 2 or 3 minutes. So now we're coming down to 140 characters. And it is a challenge, yes, but we'll still do it. And we'll still make everyone understand what the country is all about. This is what I think is a new challenge for us.
So, Agnihotri, excellent speech and it was very powerful. I'm really impressed with Pallavi also. Thank you so much. Also, I had a question for you about, you said making good movies. How do you define that? Because movie business is a business, right? People want to make money out of it. Even if you look at Bahubali that you referred, it's not a real story. It's not a real episode. So, if you want to fund some good movies, it has to make, like Shah Rukh Khan makes money. Other actors make money. Yeah, that's what I heard, the numbers. Even Bahubali made a lot of money. So, you make good message movies, typically it doesn't make the box office, right? So, how does one get involved with good movies? Because it's not a non-profit. If it's a non-profit, people would love to give some money and say get some tax benefit out of it. So when you define say good movies, I think you need to clarify what do you mean by good movies?
She's been doing good movies. I have made a lot of bad movies. She knows better.
I want to give a very funny answer to this, please. I think you can learn a lot from women here. Because women leave their homes, get married, get into their in-laws' house. It's not necessary that they like everybody on the first day. But they make an effort and they keep going at it. And finally, they arrive at a point where the family lives happily ever after, you know. So, I think, I know it is difficult. The kind of movies that we've been making, the kind of movies that I've been interested in, a lot of people have come and told me that, यार हमारी ज़िंदगी में इतने टेंशन्स होते हैं, पूरे दिन ऑफिस में the boss की डांट खाते हैं, घर पे आके बीवी चिल्लाती है. After that, at the end of the day, if we want to watch a film, we want to see Amitabh Bachchan fighting 10 men and then romancing with Rekha. तो उस रात को मुझे लगता है मैं अमिताभ हूँ, मेरी बीवी रेखा है, and we have a lovely night. तो ये फैंटेसी में उनको ले जाने के लिए these films, you know, work as an escape medium, and that's why, you know, filmmakers are called dream merchants. But along with that, along with entertainment, there are different forms of entertainment. Even a circus can entertain you. But then, filmmakers also have a responsibility to show through their films what is actually happening in the country and try to create some kind of an awareness. Now, when people try to do this, I know most of you would like to see an Amitabh Bachchan and not an Om Puri. Certainly, I mean, you would definitely not think twice before taking that $15 ticket and going and watching a Shah Rukh Khan movie. But you would probably think twice before, you know, watching a Nawazuddin Siddiqui doing a lunchbox maybe. But what happens is, once you actually pay that money and go and see that film, you come out of the theatre feeling far enriched and having learned something and having, you know, there is also a lot of entertainment quotient in films like these. But you have to make an effort. And for that responsibility solely lies with the audience. The only reason these movies don't make money is because they don't have beautiful faces in the films. Because these are real stories. In reality, not everybody looks beautiful, but you have to look inside the person to know the true beauty. So that's where I say that we can learn from women. You know, when I got married and when I went to Vivek's house, I didn't know what his mother was all about, you know. Hanji, namaste ji. But uske baad I didn't know what was coming. And she didn't know what was coming from my side. But we both made an effort to like each other. And then we had a wonderful relationship. So if you make an effort to go to the theatre and see 1 or 2 films, I'm sure you'll get hooked. And you'll start watching these films more often.
And just very good question. I'm delighted you asked that, because that has been a struggle of my life also. When I started my film career, everybody told me, yeah, after all, people see a film because they want to escape the real world, and therefore that's where the numbers lie. But I told you, like devil creates this myth. This is a myth. Just because Playboy sells most, should we stop printing Gita? That's my question. And then I realized that how do I know so much about this world? Because my parents told me those stories which were not available anywhere. Those mythological stories, those old stories, the stories my father, I'm a son of both my parents are freedom fighters. They spent most of their youth in jail, you know, and getting canned. But they told me so many stories about partition. There are no films on partition in India. There are no films on Gandhi in India. Nobody is going to read my experiments with truth. Where did I learn them from? My teachers told me, my neighbors told me, my professors told me. But what is happening now? We have stopped telling stories to our children. It is, here lots of people say, but ये बच्चे तो हिंदी में interest नहीं लेते, इंडिया में interest नहीं लेते, तो parents give up. Did your parents give up? Weren't you told, नहीं, उस function में जाना ही है, इसके पाँव छुओ ही, ये तिलक लगेगा ही, तुमको एग्जाम में जाने के पहले ये खीर खा के जाना ही है. They never gave up. Because they were not our friends, they were our parents. Today, we are competing to become their friends. And that's why we give up. The minute you become their parents and you say it's your duty, like you have a job to perform in Facebook or Google, you have a job to perform at home, you have to expose them to good films, good cinema, good stories, good literature, it's your job. And that's when you'll realize why you should fund good stories. Answer lies in your children.
Let's take the last two questions really quickly.
Okay.
We're almost out of time.
So, in India, there were movies like PK, really denigrating Indian culture and most of our beliefs. Nobody opposes. We had incidents at JNU, University of Jamshedpur, again very disappointing, right? And we don't see common men opposing. Why? So there are two questions. Which invisible hands are playing in these cases? And is Indian society in real deep sleep that it cannot even recognize what's going wrong or how they are being depicted?
So if you don't, we'll just take your question also really quickly, and maybe you can reflect on both.
Yeah, actually, it's very glad to see both the media achievers on the stage, and thank you, Vichar Manthan, for arranging this program. My question is directly to the, you covered very well about the movie making. It's a 3-hour movie. You put a message and you put all the story and necessary. But what about the TV serials? I see Pallavi ji started Peshwa Bajirao, very good TV serial. Can we also do certain, patriotic TV serial or some mythological TV serials and increase their participation? Also end it on time, like not to take it at length.
See that we can't, and we can't begin things on time. We can't also end things on time. So don't worry about that. So TV, she is an expert. Let her say.
You want to answer the question first?
Yeah. In fact, you had answered yourself. See, in last 60, 70 years, the people who were leaders of the country, they could survive. Let me take names here. In 10 years of Congress regime, when Sonia Gandhi came in, they formed all the cultures. What they did was they took all the intellectuals and they put them in all institutions, educational institutions, and everywhere you will find. And they were of a particular mindset. People who want to demolish the fact so that people can take pride in Hinduism or Indian culture. Because that's the only way they could rule, because they were not competent themselves. So they had to find these intellectuals by giving them alms, by taking them on junkets, by giving them bungalows in Lutyens, Delhi, by giving them consultants here and there. And these people controlled all the narrative. Even today, despite being Mr. Modi there, he's trying his best, but it's almost next to impossible to replace everybody who's going to take next 10, 15 years. Most of the universities, research facilities, media, all these people, and they have become middlemen now. They have become middlemen. Now today, Barkha writes for Washington Post. If she wants to write greatness of India, if she wants to write about great things about India, do you think she can? No. She can survive as a journalist only when she becomes the broker between a narrative which America wants to be dominate the world and her survival. So that's where the problem lies, I think. About TV, Pallavi will tell you.
See, in television, unfortunately, all the channels that you see, the entertainment channels, are all controlled by outside forces. Barring Z, there is not a single Indian channel. Everything belongs to Star, Sony. And they understand only one language, and that's money. Anything that can get them profits. So there was a kind of, movement that started happening in television in the last couple of years, where people started pushing historical and mythological serials. And suddenly these channels felt that they were making good amount of money. Hence you had one Maharana Pratap rolling out. Hence you had Jodha Akbar. Hence you had, even Peshwa Bajirao happened. But again, what happens is that there are forces within, our country also which don't let things slide smoothly. I'll tell you one incident which happened on our sets. On the sets of Peshwa Bajirao, now Peshwa Bajirao was a Brahmin. And all the, we're talking about Maratha history here, so the Maratha warriors are like Kshatriyas, So there is one brigade, which is a newly formed brigade. I'm sure the Marathi people know about it. It's called Sambhaji Brigade. Now, these people want to portray, or actually trying to tell the world that Chhatrapati Sambhaji, Shivaji Maharaj's son, was probably as good and as powerful and as brave as him, if not more. So these people landed upon our sets and they stopped the shooting. They said that you're, showing all wrong history and you're making this very Brahminical. And you have to show that Marathas are great warriors. We said, we are showing that, right? So they had a problem with my character because Tara Rani is a very borderline character. She had to stand up in a man's world as a warrior queen. She was the only woman who was a warrior queen, and she had to, control this entire army of men. So obviously she was, she had to be a little conniving and she had to do things. So now we still try to keep a very good line in the character. Even then they had a problem. And the other problem was that a Maratha character was being played by somebody called Joshi. Now when these things start happening and they start coming and hampering history, then what do? You can't even make a correct representation on television. So at this kind of times, the producer takes a back seat and he says, "Mujhe kuch nahi karna hai." Because suddenly these people wanted 5 crores from the producers, saying that you're showing everything that is wrong. And they got their own proofs. Now in India, you have about 20 books giving you 20 different versions of histories. So in some book, there is a reference of Sambhaji Maharaj coming to Raigad when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj died on a camel back. And obviously when he reached, Chhatrapati was dead already. तो वो उनको इतना गुस्सा आ गया कि उन्होंने उसी कैमल को पीट के मार दिया. ऐसे हिस्ट्री बुक में लिखा है. Now which person would be foolish enough to do this? But all the history has been written wrongly. So there is one book which says Sambhaji Maharaj ये ऐसे किया. Some other book says something else. Some other book says something else. Now you don't even know which book to follow. So I think mythological serials are probably the best bet because then you can show anything. But history that becomes a very big problem in a society like India where there are 10,000 sentiments, and anyone can come and sue you and can make any kind of claims because unfortunately we do not have documented history available as one single strong proof कि ये हम जो कर रहे हैं वो सही है. And about the serials ending on time, of course you know that as long as people are watching it and they're making money, then it's still going to keep going.
Thank you, Vamsee ji, speakers and participants from the audience. I now request Nihar ji, a volunteer of Vichar Manthan, to update us on the California textbook issue.
A very brief update. So you see something on the screen, right? Yeah. So this slum picture and many more others also you could see. For example, these are part of current drafts of textbooks. So while describing India and Hinduism, they use such pictures. If you could see this, for example, this is a contrast. So cattle with trash is what goes for Hinduism and India. Other pictures, of course, with festivals, feasts, or wonderful architecture and everything goes for. And this is the current draft textbook, which will become textbook in the next coming days. So August 17th, we have a chance to make ourselves heard. And we all need to be there in big numbers in Sacramento, California Department of Education. So who all can come, please register yourself at the desk so that we can contact you also and provide you more details. You'll have 2 minutes to speak for each of the textbooks. So there are multiple problems with the textbooks. There are a lot of review reports also which we can read, and we can give testimonials. If there are children who have faced bullying and stereotyping in classrooms, they can speak about that experience also. So please block that time, August 17th, to come to Sacramento and speak for Indian civilization. I would request that from you. And also there's a change.org petition that's going on to stop demonization of India. So I would request you to sign that. You could just search for tinyurl/CA textbooks. CA as in California. tinyurl/CA textbooks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nihar ji. I now request Dharmendra ji, another volunteer of Vichar Manthan, to present the concluding remarks and deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you. It was such a great talk, so there's no doubt about it. So everybody were very much involved, engaged, and I should say it is a better, thoughtful Saturday. And on behalf of Vichar Manthan, HSS, Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, and Maharashtra Mandal Bay area, we thank Shri Vivek Agnihotri Pallavi Joshi and Professor Vamsee Juluri to moderating this session, and for their interaction with all the audience here and making it more engaging and answering all the questions. And on behalf of the Vichar Manthan team, we thank Maharashtra Mandal Bay area for co-hosting today's event. And we are grateful for the temple authorities and the management who has given the space to us, and for their continued support for letting us using their facilities. And we appreciate and thanks firstly for all the audience for your participation today, and request your continued participation like this, and please give us feedback. And as you know that we also have a YouTube channel, please subscribe to it. All the videos with the speaker's permission, so will be uploaded there. So please subscribe to get all the updates. And also write to us at vicharmanthanbayarea@gmail.com in case if you have any suggestions or suggestions. And after this event, the speakers will stay here. So we request all the audience to please head to the kitchen area in the temple hall for the Preeti Bhoj. And we will also conclude the session with a Shanti Mantra. And also one of the partners today's media, TV Asia, so we thank them for their support. So in the Shanti Mantra, so I'll say the first line. So please follow that line, and then we'll continue from there. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thanks for everyone. Thank you.